So welcome. I'm Crystal Ship with the SF team at Compass. We also have Eva Stoyanov with the SF team on this call, and Anna Liu, who is with Stephen Adair and MacDonald and partners. And we're going to be talking today about a couple things. The first is Prop 21, which is on the ballot and soon to be decided. And the second thing is AB 3088, which is the COVID Tenant Relief Act of 2020. So Anna, I'll let you introduce a little bit about yourself first and kind of what you do, and then we can jump into our topics for today.
Sounds great. Thank you, Crystal and Eva, for having me. Thanks to the SF team. I'm glad to be here with you to talk about the upcoming ballot measures and some changes to local and state real estate laws that affect property owners. My name is Anna Liu. I'm a partner at Stephen Adair MacDonald and Partners here in San Francisco. We handle a variety of real estate litigation and landlord-tenant. I specialize in all aspects of real estate litigation and landlord-tenant law. We advise property owners regarding their rights and responsibilities, and also help those who are looking at tenant-occupied properties as well, giving them advice and information about what to expect when purchasing a tenant-occupied property.
Okay, great. Well, as agents, we're often asked questions about the laws relating to real estate and how certain things impact our clients. And unfortunately, we can't give them legal advice. And that's why, your knowledge and expertise has been so helpful. And we love being able to rely on you for consulting with our clients on those legal issues. So we're glad that you could join us and give us your thoughts on these topics. So we'll jump right into first Prop 21. And I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing about the different propositions. So can you tell us just briefly what Prop 21 is, what it means, and why it matters to, in particular, homeowners?
Yes, so Prop 21 is on the ballot this coming November. It's a statewide measure. And what it does is it amends a state law called Costa Hawkins. Costa Hawkins is a state law that was enacted in 1995, and it basically prevents cities from enacting rent control to properties that were built after 1995. So Prop 21 is on the ballot this November to amend portions of Costa Hawkins and allow cities to enact stricter forms of rent control to properties that were built within the last 15 years. So with Costa Hawkins, it provides a number of different benefits to property owners. And as some of you may recall, back in 2018, 2 years ago, there was a similar measure on the ballot, and it was Prop 10. It was defeated, and that measure was put on the ballot 2 years ago to eliminate Costa Hawkins in its entirety. So the same group is now behind Prop 21. They put it back on the ballot this year. The person behind it is Michael Weinstein out of Southern California. He runs the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. He mobilized to get this one on the ballot. And a lot of landlords say he's kind of a thorn in the side of landlords because he's coming back 2 years later to try and get this on the ballot. So more specifically, Costa Hawkins does a few things. I'd say the main ones that property owners who have tenants need to be aware of is, first, it allows landlords to set the rent to market level when the last original occupant leaves. So if you've got tenants, your tenants on the lease leave, but there are roommates or subsequent occupants, Costa Hawkins allows landlords to reset the rent to market when those last original folks leave. Next, what it does is it also has a form of what we call vacancy decontrol. So what that means is when tenants move out, so you've got an empty unit, a landlord wants to put in new tenants, the landlord has the right to establish the new rental rate for those tenants. That's under Costa Hawkins. So if Prop 21 passes and it amends Costa Hawkins, those two things would go away. So landlords would not be able to set the rent to what they want when tenants move out. They would only be allowed to set the rent to a 15% increase when tenants leave. Another thing is they would not be able to raise the rent on subsequent occupants when the last original occupant leaves. And again, cities would be able to enact stricter forms of rent control. So I would say that with Prop 21, I'm not expressing an opinion on it either way, but if you're a landlord, Prop 21 is very concerning.
Well, that sounds, like it could really impact a lot of people most people in San Francisco in one way or another. So thank you for explaining that. Um, how is Prop 21 doing in the polls, and do you know how likely it is to pass this November?
Yes, so I saw a few weeks ago, I saw some polling on it, and the polling shows that Prop 21 was not doing very well. There was more opposition to it than support. It looked like Prop 21 was getting about 37% support. I have seen in more recent weeks that the polling has gotten a little better, but it's still leaning on the no side. Also, Prop 21 is one of those kind of over $1 million funding measures. So right now, the industry against it has raised about $70 million to defeat it. And the proponents of Prop 21 have raised about $40 million. So it's one of those, big ticket ballot measures.
So Anna, are there any other real estate related measures on the ballot?
Yes, there are two other statewide measures and one local San Francisco measure. I'll briefly touch on what they are. They're basically tax related. So there's Prop 15. That's the statewide measure to increase funding sources for schools, for community colleges, and local government services by changing the tax assessment of commercial and industrial property. So in short, it increases taxes for commercial and industrial properties that are non-agricultural to basically be taxed at market rates. And there is an exemption for property values at $3 million or less. Then there's Proposition 19. That one changes certain property tax rules, including changing the step-up basis for transfers of real property between family members. It also has a measure in there to permit people who are over 55 or severely disabled or homeowners whose homes were destroyed by wildfires or other natural disasters. It allows those folks to transfer their primary residence property tax basis to a replacement residence of any value anywhere in the state. And then locally here in San Francisco, Proposition I is a ballot measure to increase the transfer tax rate on properties valued over $10 million. It essentially doubles the transfer tax, and the money collected from this tax will go into San Francisco's general fund.
Okay, great. So there's, a lot on the ballot that could potentially impact property owners. So it's super important for people to be aware and educate themselves on these issues. So thank you for highlighting those. Really great to know. I've heard a lot of chatter about, just various measures for tenants and, whether it's eviction moratoriums and tenant relief due to COVID-19. And one of them is AB 3088. Can you explain to us what that is and when it took effect?
Yes, AB 3088, it's a big new piece of legislation. It's over 30 pages of law, single-spaced, so it's very dense. It went into effect September 1st, 2020 of this year. And basically what it does is it stands for the COVID Tenant Relief Act, so CITRA as what it's normally called. It applies only to residential properties, so not commercial. It applies statewide throughout all of California, and it only applies to non-payment of rent situations, but it also extends just cause protections for tenants who are facing eviction, and it extends just cause under another statewide law called AB 1482. So I'll get into that in a little bit. It's a little complicated. Again, over 30 pages of new law, single space, so it's pretty dense. But to break it down and give you just a brief overview, to try and keep it a little bit more simple, AB 3088 applies when residential tenants haven't paid rent, and the law breaks up two different rental payment periods. So the first is rent that became due between March 1st of this year and August 31st. So March 1st to August 31st, that's one period of rent where tenants can't be evicted by their landlords if they missed any rent payments between this period of time, as long as they provide a declaration to the landlord stating that their income has been affected by COVID-19. So that's the first period of rent. And if the landlord provides, or the tenant provides that declaration to the landlord, they will not be able to be evicted for non-payment of rent. The next rent period is between September 1st of 2020 and January 31st of 2021. And again, tenants can't be evicted for non-payment of rent so long as they provide that declaration to the landlord stating their income's been affected, and they pay 25% of the rent per month for those periods. It also requires the landlord to give 15 days notice rather than the standard 3-day notice. And the 15 days does not include weekends or court holidays. So the purpose of the law is to give tenants basically more time to pay, some additional protections for non-payment of rent. And what's unique about this law is that it allows rent debt that is owed to landlords that accrued between these periods of March 1st and January 31st to be pursued in small claims court. Now, normally in California, small claims court has a maximum jurisdictional limit of $10,000, but for purposes of Citra, the small claims jurisdictional limits have been expanded to now include rent owed between those periods. So landlords can start filing small claims cases after March 1st of 2021 for unpaid rent. I should also add that, again, it extends just cause protections under AB 1482 to all residential units until February 1st, 2021. So that's a big deal because AB 1482 is a completely separate state law that basically added just cause and rent control protection statewide with certain exceptions. But AB 3088 extends the just cause provisions of AB 1482 to all residential units through February 1st.
Got it. So basically all residential property owners need to have just cause to evict their tenants under
Yes,
3088.
that's correct, until February 1st. Yeah.
And do you happen to know how many people have actually filed these claims or given their landlords notice? Are there any statistics as to how, what percentage of tenants have been impacted by COVID and have availed themselves of this relief?
I haven't seen recent statistics on this. There are a couple of organizations that are putting out surveys to landlords saying, hey, has your tenant paid rent? I know the San Francisco Apartment Association is one, and the California Apartment Association is another. I think because the law just went into effect about a month ago on September 1st, the stats will be pretty raw and pretty new. But we can certainly expect to see more information about that as the months go on and while this is in effect.
Got it. Okay. And so for the landlords that are out there listening to this, is there anything that they can do to kind of mitigate the effects that this will have for them and their, if their tenants are impacted in this way?
Yes. Well, if you're a landlord and your tenant isn't paying rent, be sure to talk to an attorney because there are a lot of new laws that impact that situation very, very specifically, including what we're talking about now. There was also a requirement under AB 3088 that landlords whose tenants had not paid rent prior to September 30th of this year send an informational notice to tenants no later than September 30th, notifying tenants of their rights under Citra. So if you're a landlord and you did that, good. If you haven't, definitely speak to a lawyer first so you can evaluate what your options and strategies are moving forward. Other ways that landlords can protect themselves would include, documenting clearly rent that has been missed, trying to work with your tenants on repayment, because of AB 3088, rent repayment plans have essentially been invalidated, but landlords should definitely try to work with tenants during this time, because they are going to be prohibited from taking legal action if the tenants can follow and meet the requirements under AB 3088.
We have some clients that use Airbnb to advertise their place as short-term rentals, and due to COVID, some of them are scared to rent to someone for more than 30 days. They're afraid that someone might not leave. Do they have good reason to be scared about letting somebody stay in their Airbnb for more than, the short-term rental amount, more than 30 days?
Yes, if the Airbnb is in San Francisco and you have a person who stays on for more than 30 days, that person will acquire tenant rights. I would say some concerns that a landlord might have are, first, if you rent under Airbnb, you don't necessarily have a written rental agreement with that person. You've just, they signed up through Airbnb and they're in there with your furnished rental. So you're not going to have a written lease in force to protect you. Once they hit their 30 days, they become tenants, they'll acquire these rights and protections, and property owners won't be able to ask that guest to leave because now they've got tenant rights. So you need just cause to evict that person. So if you've got an Airbnb and you're thinking about letting the guest stay for more than 30 days, you've got to evaluate all of your options, because now you're acquiring a tenant with protections.
So do you recommend that landlords that normally Airbnb contact you in advance to agreeing to such a rental that's more than 30 days?
Yes, I would speak with an attorney, because you may not realize what protections you're granting that person by allowing them to hit that 30-day mark. So yes, if you've got a guest in there who wants to stay more than 30 days, talk to an attorney first. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to go over options and come to some resolutions or solutions before you allow that person to stay for a longer period of time.
We know of some clients that rent out residential places commercially. Has anything changed in the laws regarding that? If a tenant is renting, for example, to a business that then sublets to other residential tenants, like more than one, is there anything there that has changed recently in the laws?
There is. So earlier this year in June, the San Francisco rent ordinance was amended to prohibit rentals to non-natural persons. So what that basically means is property owners won't be able to rent to like a corporation or a business entity, and then that entity would rent out separate rooms in the home or the entire home then to subtenants. So that's no longer permitted. It was amended, the San Francisco rent ordinance, as of June of this year. So property owners who were following that structure won't be able to. Leases that were still in effect through that date can continue until the fixed term ends, but no new leases can be entered into under that situation. Also, if you're a property owner and you have a residential property and you're thinking of using it for a commercial space, there may be certain issues with that. So again, give me a call, talk to an attorney. You want to make sure you know and you're aware of everything you're getting into before you set up that rental situation.
Thank you again. I know a lot of landlords are trying to be creative, but they could be putting themselves at risk. So we'll put them in touch with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you both for having me. I'm happy to answer questions of your clients who are, considering buying tenant-occupied properties or selling tenant-occupied properties. So I'm happy to speak with anyone who needs help. My email address, feel free to email me, is aliu@samlaw.net. You can also give me a call at 415-956-6488.
Thank you so much, Anna. I know our clients who have talked with you have found it to be incredibly helpful in them making long-term decisions and just getting better guidance on all of these legal issues. So thank you again. If anyone has any questions about real estate, whether it's about buying or selling property for yourself or as an investment, please feel free to reach out to us here at the SF team. We're always happy to talk with you about your plans and help guide you. We can also introduce you to great experts like Anna for any legal advice or questions. You can reach us at team@thesfteam.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.